Hi, this is Dominic Keating. I played Lieutenant Malcolm Reed on Enterprise, as you probably know, and you are listening to the NX 7062 podcast. Enjoy.
That's right. It's time for the NX 7062 podcast, coming to you live from beautiful New Jersey. Hello, where it's been unseasonably warm these last couple of days. Hello, Jean. Hello, Robert. Thank you all for joining me. I love Jean's comment. Hold on, I will share it with the group. He was a Trek. Yes, it was Trekkies before it was Trekkers. Yes, it was. I personally prefer Trekkers, but that's just me. Hello, Magic Lasso. Thank you all for joining me tonight. Like I said, it's a Monday night. It is 10 o'clock, so of course it's time to be here with me, your host, Stephanie K, to get things underway. As always, we are the Seventh Rule and Shuttlepod Show after party, so I'm looking forward to all the Seventh Rule people popping in a little bit. Some of them even do double duty, and I love that. And of course, we have to talk about the Shuttlepod Show. It was the second part of the Rick Berman interview. But first, real quick, let's see. STLV is holding steady at 99 guests, but they did add a tribute to Ricardo Montalban, and Ricardo Montalban's son-in-law is going to be hosting that, along with there is going to be a 40th anniversary showing of Star Trek II Wrath of Khan, along with an anniversary showing of Star Trek Nemesis during the convention. Dates and times to be determined, but since they are open to the general public, as in you do not need to be a ticket holder for the convention, chances are that it's going to be some point after the floor closes. I know the last time they did it was like midnight screenings out by the pool. I don't know what the pool situation is at Bally's, but be on the lookout for that. And of course, I'll share information through socials when I find out. Let's see what else is going on. Oh, by the way, anybody, I'm gonna wait for a little bit before I answer this question. But if anybody understands the shirt I'm wearing tonight, and there actually is a Star Trek tie-in to this, but if anybody gets the shirt, I'm gonna look in the comments and see if anybody knows the significance of my shirt, which I just happened to pull out today, and I thought, you know what, this will be a fun one to wear on the podcast. So, semi-spoiler alert, because we all know that my rule for spoilers is, especially in this day and age with the interwebs, is that if it's more than 48 hours old, then I don't consider it a spoiler. So we are going to be talking about those strange new worlds visited by Captain Pike and his crew of the USS Enterprise. No, that is a good guess, and I get why. But it is not Speed Racer, but I see where you're going with that. But Speed had that little M. The size, the color, and the size are actually very, very significant. It is also not Malcolm Reed, but knowing me, Jean, that is an excellent guess. There is a tie-in to Star Trek, but this shirt is specifically not Star Trek. I'm looking at you, Lasso. You might, I don't know. Maybe not, but possibly Lasso. All right, so Strange New Worlds had a couple of Enterprise tie-ins, speaking of Malcolm Reed, with this week's episode. The first thing that I personally noticed were those jackets, which people are already tweeting about. When are they going to be on sale? Where can I get a jacket? Obviously, all those cosplay designers, I'm sure, are already picking apart the pictures. But it definitely had a very Enterprise feel with the patches on the arms and the fact that they were leather. The ones from Enterprise were actually kind of quilted. If you guys remember, they were kind of like this quilted look. They were leather jackets, but they had this quilted look to them. These were a little more fitted. Very cool. I would want one in a second if I could. Sorry. Messages coming through. Hello, War Dog. Hello, War Dog. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, but if I get a hold of one of those jackets, I would love one of those jackets. The other thing is the Illyrians. The Illyrians were actually, it looks like, according to Memory Alpha, which, 48 hours and they've already updated it with all of Una's information. But the only other time we've heard of the Illyrians, and I knew it was familiar. And why was it familiar? Because the only other time they appeared was in Damaged, which was a third season Enterprise episode, and it was one of those absolutely wonderful Captain Archer. Oh, that's awesome. Those jackets are nice too. Those jackets are absolutely awesome too. Damaged is one of those episodes where you see Captain Archer with one of his ethical dilemmas. Casey Biggs was an Illyrian. Great episode. Oh, see, thanks. Yep. That was a great Enterprise episode. Hi, Mohammed. I love it. You just jump right in with Enterprise references. Love that. And that's one of the reasons why you and me, we get each other. It was a great episode. Watching Captain Archer have one of those moral dilemmas. We have to save Earth. We need their warp coil. If we steal their warp coil, they are going to be stranded in space for 3 years. And he stole the warp coil. We'd all like to think, and I don't know if I don't read, I've only read one Enterprise novel so far that takes place within the 4 years that the show was on the air, that's set in the middle of that timeline. One or two. So I don't know if there's any Enterprise novel that's solved, because I think we'd all like to think that if nothing else, he told the Xindi where to go find them and said, hey, listen, we sort of did this to these guys. Would you mind going and helping them out so that they can get home in less than 3 years? So that's the first time we see the Illyrians. And then, of course, I'm sure that there's stuff out there that's non-canon. And then we get to meet them again. And I mean, you want to talk about 3 episodes in, and the elephant in the room has come crashing through. That would be La'an's relation to Khan Noonien Singh, and talks of genetic enhancements and mutations. The only thing they didn't talk about, and this they could have even talked about the Suliban. There was an opening to discuss the Suliban, but I guess they figured, we're doing the Illyrians. We don't need to bring the Suliban into this. But the Illyrians and their versions of genetic enhancements compared to what Earth did during the eugenics issues, completely different. Phlox, I think, has spoken about genetic enhancements at some point in Enterprise, and I know, Mohammed, you'll back me up on this, but I am pretty sure that there was at least one conversation with Phlox where he talked about genetic enhancements at some point during the Suliban crisis, or whatever you want to call the Suliban thing that they never really fleshed out. Oh, shoot, that would have been a really good question for Rick Berman now that he's done the Shuttle Pod show. God damn it, that would have been a really good question. The Suliban, what would have happened? Would you have brought them back? Because I kind of liked it. And then, I mean, yes, Silik died, but it felt very loosey-goosey. Yep, see, thank you, Mohammed. I knew you had my back. Sean, I have to read Blackfire, which is the best Star Trek novel out there. It takes place after the motion picture. Was this the one with the augments? No, I think Phlox talked about genetic enhancements in Suliban. I don't think he talked about it that late in the game. John, honestly, I am really honestly only reading Enterprise novels, but I will look into it. I just, I don't know. I just honestly, up until I decided I wanted more Enterprise in my life, I actually never even thought I was going to read the novels. I have to read it. Okay, actually, I lied. I've also read, here's the other thing. I've read maybe 3. This is what happened. I read Mzadi 2, the TNG X-Men crossover, and That might have been it. 3 or 4 Enterprise novels or TNG novels, and I stopped because I don't like reading. My problem, and I have the same problem with Star Wars novels as well, is the whole thing where you end up with different authors because you really start enjoying the stories, and then you get like one bad author on one bad story, and you don't. It makes you almost not want to pick up another book because you just never know, you know, between authors who's going to write the good ones and who's going to write the bad ones. There was a really bad Enterprise novel. I wish I could remember the name of it. It's on my Kindle somewhere. That I like slogged through just because it's very rare that I'll stop reading something in the middle, and I just. Ugh. But I will look into that. Thank you, Jean. What is one of your favorite episodes ever? Damaged. Damaged was a really good episode. Hi, Jamie. Damaged was a really good episode because, again, you got to see that whole situational ethics thing that Archer went through. The first 2 seasons, it's like, la, 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 exploring the universe. This is fun. And every now and then there was a moral quandary, but the Xindi really pushed his ethical envelope between Solimitude and Damaged and everything that he went through. And, I mean, that's where you really, really figured out that he got it. Oh, that's sweet, John. Thank you. I will. You know what? I will look and see how much it is on Kindle. See if it's floating around on Kindle. But I really, really appreciate that. And honestly, I mean, I grew up loving the book thing. Obviously, just I love like flipping through. And in fact, I interviewed Dominic a couple years ago at. You guys might have seen this. I replayed it. Oh my God, at STLV. And one of the fan questions was, what is he reading? He and Connor are both avid readers. And Dominic's goofy answer was books. It's like, books? Like, he still, and I, for the longest time, was still like, give me something to hold and flip pages through. But I'm leaning more towards Kindling now. Just because I just find it so much easier to carry my tablet around. And that way, I mean, honestly, seriously, I haven't finished. The Lost Symbol is the last book that I was reading. Somebody sent me the paperback for the Lost Symbol, the third Dan Brown thing. And I'm about this far away from finishing. And you know why I haven't finished it is because it was my plane book. I was only reading it when I was on a plane. And I know that if I get on a plane with it, I'm going to finish it in 2 seconds. And then what? So what I'm going to have to do is one of these days, I'm going to have to sit down with a cup of coffee, and kick back and just finish it because it's not going with me anywhere anymore because I would finish it too quickly. But thank you, Jean. I will definitely look into that title. I'll definitely look into that too because I honestly have not read any TOS novels. So that might be something to look into. Okay, back to the recap of Strange New Worlds. Like I said, Elephant in the Room, La'an starts talking about Khan and having that last name and going through having that name and growing up and being accused of being an augment and all that stuff. And augment, I think, wasn't even the TOS word for it. So that was kind of cool having her use that terminology. Cadet Uhura hangs out in the lower decks. I love how it looked very much like what we see if anybody watches Lower Decks. That whole little pod thing was very Lower Decks, which I thought was great. The ship is absolutely beautiful. When they turned all the lights out. Jean, you and I agree on Minefield and Silent Enemy. I am not a huge fan of Dead Stop. I don't know what. I think it has some moments, and that's actually the bad novel I read was them finding out exactly who created those stations and why. And it was a really interesting premise. The novel was a very interesting premise about some alien races were actually okay with donating bodies because what the machinery did for their civilizations was worth more to them than a couple of their species plugged in to power the damn thing. So I thought the premise of the novel was interesting. I just didn't like the way it was written. I had a problem with the way it was written. I just didn't like the style. The other, and here's something interesting about Strange New Worlds, and I was all excited because the actress that they got to voice the computer, Alex Kapp, I thought absolutely nailed sounding like Majel Barrett. I thought it was great that she did that. And then as I'm putting my stuff together, as I'm putting my shit together for the show tonight, as I said, I realized the ship didn't start out in TOS talking like that. And I think, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, I looked this up real quick on IMDb because honestly, by the time that information popped into my head, it was really close to showtime. But I looked really quick, and I think the first time that Majel voiced the Enterprise as the computer was in Mudd's Women, because remember they had that refit, that stopover on that planet of women or something, and they didn't even mention where it was. They just said, oh, we had the Enterprise refit on this planet, and all of a sudden the computer started talking like a woman. So the computer didn't even really start talking, and I'm not even sure. So the computer didn't even really start talking like a woman until later. So that's a little incongruous that they did that. They kind of jumped ahead on that. I guess that's a continuity thing that I could actually have an issue with. That somebody didn't, it's like, yeah, let's make the ship talk like Majel. Oops, it's not supposed to do that until we're into TOS. Yeah, it was interesting to find out. I like the twist at the end. There was a twist at the end, but like I said, I just didn't like the style that it was written. There's secrets that are coming out that, the doctor's got a secret, the whole pattern buffer thing, a la Mr. Scott. I don't know, maybe this is where Scotty picked it up from, that I can stick myself in the pattern buffer for as long as I need to until somebody freaking as long as somebody, finds me eventually. Let's see. I don't know about you guys either, but the Anar that I know and love, Anar, are obviously the ones that were introduced to us in the 4th season of Enterprise, and the one that and then there's the one that Shran falls in love with, and I can't remember her name off the top of my head, even though she was in The Good Men Do, which is the novel I just finished reading, and now I feel really bad because she was pivotal in that damn. I suck with names is basically what I'm trying to say. But the Anar never seemed to be as arrogant. They were always very zen, very peaceful people. And the Anar that they've got on the Enterprise right now, yeah, they're called the Anar. Yeah, the White Andorian blind telepaths, they're called Anar. That's what they're called. And they were in the 4th season of Enterprise. And I loved them there, but they were very centered and zen, and they're also pacifists. It's the other thing, they're also pacifists, which is why the Andorians don't even really like them that much, because they're pacifists, and the Andorians are the blue skins are Andorians are very much not. So God, this is gonna drive me crazy. I think her name began with a T. Shit, it's gonna drive me crazy. I can't think of her name. Let's see. The other thing that I liked about Strange New Worlds that I thought was really interesting was that whole thing where, again, when you have that crisis of conscience and that introspection moment with your log, where you sit down and you do your personal log, like number 1 did at the end, and and then she's like, computer, delete log entry, because then you sit down and you think about it. And you think, yeah, this is my personal log, but someday somebody is probably going to come across it. And do I really want them hearing this? So you delete it. Sometimes you just need to say it all out loud before. Do you want to come say hi, Reed? Someday you want to just come and kind of just hear yourself. And I do this. I think most people do this. They kind of talk to themselves. Not necessarily recording it, but sometimes just saying things out loud helps put things in perspective, and it's not anything that you need to sit down and go and reflect on later. Like, you don't need to re-listen to it, you just need to say it, and then you realize probably should not be recording this, and probably don't need other people to hear this. So, bye-byes, like Cisco did at the end of the, see again, titles and episodes. That episode. that pivotal, critically acclaimed episode of Deep Space Nine that I cannot for the life of me remember the name of. Sorry. So we are moving on to Shuttlepod Show. It was the 30-minute part 2 of the Rick Berman interview. And again, just finding out these really cool facts, like the fact that the Bashir O'Brien friendship worked so well in Deep Space Nine, and they loved it so much that they wanted to kind of have that be reflected in Enterprise in Malcolm and Trip. Notice they did not say Paris and Kim. They said Bashir and O'Brien. Yay for me. No Voyager references. Rick also was one of the writers of Shuttlepod 1, which was that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to use Shuttlepod 1 to coalesce that relationship because they felt like it was that's the direction they wanted to go in, that they wanted Trip and Malcolm to have that kind of friendship the same way. Jamal, thank you. Thank you, Robert. Jamal, that is her name. Yeah, again, the book I was reading, he is part of their bonded group because it takes 4 Andorians to make a marriage. I shouldn't put it in quote. Well, I don't know if that's what it's called because they call it a bonding group. Bonded group. It takes 4. So, which I thought was interesting, and God, Trip's head would have exploded if somebody tried to explain that to him. So anyway, Rick said that they found Shuttlepod 1 a really easy episode to write. I mean, as far as writing episodes go, it just kind of flowed, which I think probably speaks a lot to the characters and the relationship that they were building and how easy it was to put them together. Let's see. Oh, and Dominic finally got to complain to somebody else about, he hated those EV suits, and he spent a lot of time in the EV suits. But it wasn't until Bakula had to spend all the time in the EV suit in Minefield that somebody actually thought maybe we could do a little bit something to make it more comfortable. It turns out that those packs are 35 pounds, those packs on their backs. Haha, menage a quatre, that's butter. That's butter. So Dominic finally got to complain to somebody about it, and basically, it's nobody really cares until the star and his trainer or the head, Bakula and his trainer were like, and somebody finally fixed it, which I thought was very funny. Oh yeah, and here's a problem that arises with me, and I think it arises with all interviewers, especially, at one point during the interview, they were having this conversation, and Rick kept saying Enterprise, and it took me a couple of times of listening to him say it when I realized he didn't mean Enterprise, he meant TNG, because he said, well, there was Enterprise, and then there was Deep Space Nine, and I'm like, wait, oh, he must, and the guys didn't correct him, and I'm thinking, I get that. Because the minute that you jump in and you stop somebody from speaking, their train of thought goes out the window. And he was in the middle of a story. And it's kind of like, do we correct him? Do we cross our fingers that people are going to know what he's talking about? They could have, put something at the bottom because they corrected Dominic. They put something at the bottom for Dominic. They didn't do that either. But it's a really tough decision if somebody's in the middle of the story and they do something like misname the show, and you want to correct them, but that if you stop them talking just to correct them, the whole flow is going to be blown out of the water. So I get that, why sometimes you just kind of just let them go, maybe correct them down the road or figure something out. The other thing that was interesting and that Dominic had asked was about the casting, the casting situation, and, who gets the last say, who says what goes on. And they talked about this really interesting, and I found this really interesting, again, just from a behind the scenes kind of thing, where Jonathan Frakes was not the first choice for number 1. Billy Campbell, who had just gotten done The Rocketeer, was. And everybody loved him. They thought he was great. And then one person who was in the casting who was part of the decision-making process, I don't remember who it was. Go watch the episode. had said that he had been in the Navy for 4 years and he would never follow Billy Campbell into battle. He's like, I wouldn't follow him anywhere. Hence, the number 2 became number 1 because their number 2 choice was Jonathan Frakes. So sometimes, depending on what's said, everybody loved this guy, but the one guy made this huge point, and it was so spot on that even though he was in the minority, everybody else went, well, that makes all the sense in the world. All right, Frakes. That one guy got Jonathan Frakes his job because he spoke from this depth of experience where it's like, you might like him for all these reasons, but in this role, he's just not going to be believable. Yeah, but there's a difference. John, you're right. Kate Mulgrew wasn't the first choice, but Yvette walked off. She had no idea what being part of a series was going to be because she was coming, I believe, from a movie background, so she had no idea. So the difference being is that she went, I don't want to do this, and they had to grab Kate. I mean, there are a lot of reasons why you don't end up with your first. I mean, Jeffrey Hunter. They asked, if you guys watched when Chris was on, they asked Jeffrey Hunter to come back and do Where No Man Has Gone Before. And his wife at the time said, you don't want to get typecast. You don't want that to happen to you. It'll ruin the whole rest of your career when this is over. So that's why he was not in the second pilot. They actually asked him first. But that's how William Shatner ended up getting cast. So, yeah, there are a ton of reasons why people end up where they end up. But from the casting perspective, I just found that really interesting that everybody was so high on this guy until somebody's like, I wouldn't believe him. I wouldn't follow him everywhere. Oh, there we go. Thanks, War Dog. Yeah, I knew it was French. Genevieve. Thank you, War Dog. I honestly, because again, don't like Voyager. So I know the story. But again, names. Boop, boop, boop. So War Dog, thank you for that correction. I absolutely appreciate it. Let's see. What else did I like about? Oh, just from a personal perspective. And again, this is a podcast. This isn't a movie set. So things like this are allowed to happen. But I noticed that Rick Berman must drink Fiji water because there was a bottle of Fiji water like in the background. And I got all excited because I love Fiji water. And yes, there is actually a difference. There's 100% a difference in water, and I love Fiji water. It gets really, 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 really cold when you leave it in the refrigerator, and it's just really good. And if you've never tried it, just next time you're out, buy yourself a bottle, and you'll see it. There is actually a difference in bottled water. But I just thought that was cool. Like Fiji got a little nod. We also found out about the origins of Porthos, which was fun. Rick Berman loved the theme song. Exactly, because we are the Chat Pack 2.0. Absolutely. But Rick Berman loved the theme song. He thought it fit. And Dominic actually came out and said he loved it. He actually said, I loved it. I was like, yes. Which is why we sing it at karaoke every now and then. I'm hoping that that's going to happen again in Vegas. Karaoke is still on the agenda for STLV. So if it is, please still let it be, and hopefully I will be able to sing, and I will be able to sing the theme song. We'll see. That's been the norm the last couple of times. The one time I deviated from that, I did so bad. I will never deviate from the theme song again if they let me sing it, because it does come down to pretty much Connor's choice. So buy him a glass of wine sometimes. When I was on the ship, I bought him a gin and tonic. Actually, it was Tanqueray and tonic. So I hate the Enterprise theme song, my least favorite of all of them. That is fair. There are a lot of people out there that hate it. They don't think it fits. Not supposed to have words. It's supposed to be very orchestral and all that. And I get that. It did deviate, but it deviated for a reason. And I'm going to say this, it fucking fit. It fit what they were doing. It fit what they were trying to say about the first steps out there. No, you can't say, I'm sorry, I don't accept that. That I do not accept. There is no such thing. It is Trek. It is the theme to Enterprise, so it is Trek. I'm sorry. That's the one thing. If Paramount decided to do this, if Rick Berman and Brandon Braga said, this is what we're going to do, we're going to make this the Enterprise theme song, we're not going to make it another instrumental thing, we want to be different, the show's going to be different, then yeah, it is Trek. You don't have to like it. You absolutely don't have to like it. I have said this so many times before, and I will say it, that you don't have to like it. There's so much Trek out there. I don't like Voyager. There's episodes of the things that I like that I hate, like all the rest of the shows. There's so many aspects of Trek that not everybody's going to like everything. But if Paramount says, or Paramount hands it to you and says, this is what we're calling Star Trek, then it's Star Trek. You don't have to like it. No, absolutely. I mean, I've watched Trek. I wasn't around when the original came out. I will give you that. I caught the original series, was my first series back in the 70s. But I will tell you this, Jean, with all the love and respect that I can muster, because I love everybody and the support that everybody shows to me by being here, I think it's amazing. And you are more than entitled to have your opinion. And you can hate that theme song from now until the end of time. I will never try to change your mind. But it's Trek. It's Trek because it's the theme to Star Trek Enterprise. So it is Trek. Yeah, you can hate it. You can absolutely hate it. There are so many people agree with you. So many people hate it. I get that. I actually, the first year when I went to Star Trek Vegas, that first year, and I went to Connor, and he and I were talking about what I wanted to sing. And I said something to him like, I said, should I sing the theme song? And he said, I'm not singing it with you, because I was actually trying to talk him into do a duet, and he kept knocking that down. And he said, I'm singing. I said, I don't need you to sing with me. I said, should I sing it? And he goes, what do you mean, should you sing it? I'm like, so many people hate that song. He's like, no, you're fine. Go sing it. And he supports me every time I come up on stage to sing it. He's always right there. Like, she's singing this. It's our theme song. He's always been so supportive. But like I said, but you can't, you can hate it all you want. But I don't agree. I don't think you can call it not Trek. It is Star Trek because it's the theme of Star Trek Enterprise. So that's pretty much it. And I've just seen so much negativity out there, and so many gatekeepers that say I've been watching Trek for X amount of years, and they think, that it's okay to spew, a lot of and I did. Jean, I don't think you've seen my shows about gatekeeping. And the negativities of the fandom. And I admit, and I don't use this word lightly, but when somebody says something isn't Trek, that's part of Star Trek, that's kind of a trigger for me, because that's where a lot of the gatekeeping starts, with people saying it's not Trek. That's great. I think that's awesome that you get past the theme. And listen, you gotta love the skip on Netflix or Amazon. All of them, that skip intro thing, I do it on so many other shows. I don't do it on Enterprise, but I do it on all these other shows. So that's great. And like I said, I think it's great that it's one of your favorites. But and like I said, hate it till your dying day. But please, just in this space is basically what I'm coming down to. In this space, if it's part of Star Trek in any way, shape, or form, if it's part of the TV series, even if it's part of the books, even though the books aren't canon, do not use the phrase "it's not Trek." That's all I ask, because that's just very triggering for me. You're allowed to hate something all you want, but you can't say it's not Trek, because it is Trek. It's just Trek you hate, and that's fine. You are more than welcome to say that's Trek that I hate. I respect that 110%. And closed captioning. Yes, and closed captioning. I don't do, me too, absolutely. Absolutely. The Xindi arc, which is something a lot of people think killed Trek. And if you go to YouTube and Google the Rat Pack, if you've never seen the Rat Pack, they have a song called the Xindi, and it's all about how season 3 supposedly ruined Enterprise. It's just really funny. Even if you like the Xindi arc, it's really a funny song, and Jeff Combs sings it. Skip intro on my Paramount sub is super glitchy. Oh no, that sucks. I use it. You know what? Hey, Faith, happy Monday. No worries. I love it that you're here. I love it that you're here. I think that that's amazing. Closed captioning. I don't use it a lot. I've mentioned this before, but if it's something that I've missed, if it's just something that I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it, I'll rewind it, turn on closed captioning and watch it. So I don't use it all the time, but it's closed captioning is awesome. Mohammed, what you need to do, I am hearing so many complaints about the Paramount app, and I had complaints when I woke up one morning after CBS All Access went away, and I turned on my TV, and all of a sudden I had the Paramount app. It just magically appeared, and then I actually had to uninstall it and reinstall it just to get it to work because it wasn't loading movies. I was trying to watch, I remember this, I was trying to watch Grease 2, and it would not load Grease 2. And yes, that's just for you, Magic Lasso. I was trying to load Grease 2, and it wouldn't work. So I had to, I ditched it. But what I have found, and you'd have to cancel so that you don't double pay for it. But if you have Amazon Prime, instead of using the app, you can use it as an Amazon Prime channel. I thought that they were interchangeable. I thought one subscription got you both versions, but it doesn't. It was weird. I was double paying for it for a while. But if you use it as a channel through Amazon Prime, it actually works better. And you get everything. It becomes a channel on Amazon Prime, which is really nice when you wake up in the morning and your Fire TV tells you that it's time to watch Strange New Worlds. That's kind of cool. Anytime. Paramount through Amazon Prime, so maybe that's the problem. Yeah, I love it as the channel through Amazon Prime. And I don't have a problem with the skip intro button. It ends right at the end of whatever theme. And I will tell you, I do skip Picard, and I do skip Discovery, and I listened to Anson Mount do the Space of the Final Frontier twice, but I skipped it this week. Because you know what? I literally finished watching Shuttlepod Show about a half an hour before it was time to come up here. So, what else? Oh, you know what? We're 37 minutes in, and we haven't even gotten to the topic, which is the look back, a year in review, which by year, I mean the fact that I come back in September to talk to you all about STLV, and then I try to go every week up through now. Next week's looking like it's going to be the final week. Do you like the Prodigy info? I've watched it a couple times. It's cute. I can't sit through intros. I get too get to the point. So I'll watch an intro on a new show a couple of times, and then that's it. Then I'll skip intro. I think Netflix actually learns that trick, because I swear to God, you skip intro on something a couple times, and then I'll just start skipping it for you. Like if you're binging, because I would do that for Deep Space Nine, I think. Let's see. John, I don't like the Enterprise theme song because it reminds me of Rod Stewart, and I always hated his song. Oh, I hate Rod Stewart too. I can't stand Rod Stewart. And again, John, hate it all you want. And yes, it reminds you of Rod Stewart because Rod Stewart freaking did it. I fortunately did not realize that, even though I had seen Patch Adams in the theater. That was back in the day when you could leave a theater before the credits were over, because nothing ever happened once the movie stopped, and then Marvel came along. But again, John, you can hate that song all you want. You do not have to defend yourself. Hate it. Absolutely hate it. Just please don't say that it's not Trek. That's all I'm asking. Hate it. Hate it. Hate it. I can't stand Rod Stewart either. I hate the fact that he sang that song first. But I love the fact that not only did they redo it for Russell Watson, but they changed the name. It's Faith of the Heart when Rod Stewart sings it, but it's Where My Heart Will Take Me when it's the theme in Enterprise. I love Russell Watson. He actually did a cover of a Meatloaf song that Jim Steinman wrote called "Is Nothing Sacred Anymore." He's actually an opera singer, but he's done some pop stuff. And thanks to Pandora, me telling Pandora that I liked Russell Watson, I started hearing a bunch of his other stuff. So the year in review. So I love obviously doing this. And I actually went through did a real quick scan of everything that I've done this year on YouTube. And I know a lot of times when people do a year in review, they do clips and they're like, oh, this is what I loved about this episode. I really didn't feel like doing that. I'm going to be honest. But B, I could use the watch hours. So if I say anything or remind you guys of anything that I've done over this last season that you want to go check out, I could use the watch hours. So go back and watch the entire season. But I did a little count. Obviously, having guests on is one of my favorite things. Some of them are here. Mohammed. Melissa Longo was on twice this season. She's been on more than that. I love talking to Melissa. I love having guests on, especially when I can bring my friends on. So I loved being able to figure out how to have Magic Lasso on the show. Oh, Jean, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I appreciate you saying that. That's very sweet. Thank you. That's my intention. I take summers off, just like all of our favorite TV shows. But I loved having Mohammed on. Mohammed, if your schedule changes next semester, you'll all have to come on again. Absolutely. But I loved figuring out how to get Lasso on, since Lasso has seen 3 episodes of Star Trek in your entire life. And he buys me all this cool Star Trek stuff, which I love. But I loved, well, you're welcome back anytime as long as you can stay awake. See, I can't change my time either. I love my little 10 o'clock time slot. Because it also works out usually for the West Coasters because it's not too late. See, train of thought got derailed. And I don't want to make it any earlier because I don't want to interfere with the 7th rule, who seems to be going on every night. Schedule next year will be much crazier with new job. Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Congratulations. I apologize for not remembering what it is, but I do remember you getting the shout out on what was it, the main viewer, I think. But anyway, that's right. Well, still, we'll figure out somehow to get you on. But Lasso and I came up with a way so that Lasso could come on. And I thought that was amazing because Lasso's been here since the very beginning. He was actually, back in the day when I first started doing podcasts, he was actually my producer for a little while, which was a huge help this is back in the day when Yahoo Messenger was actually still a thing, because he would Yahoo stuff to me. Like this was audio only. And I would be talking because I always did live, and he would just Yahoo message me things that I needed to know. He has been with me the longest. He's like my original, I guess he's like my number one fan, just from a point of he's been with me since my journey started doing this podcasting thing. So the fact that I was able to figure out how to get him on a Star Trek podcast was amazing. Yeah, exactly. Ha Yahoo Messenger. I had an ICQ account. I mean, I've been around since Messenger's first started. But yeah, and Lasso's been on my show before, back before when it was just an entertainment deal and it wasn't specifically Star Trek. I mean, I narrowed down the theme, I went in stages to get to this point. But I was able to have him on. It was just an entertainment show, but being able to have him on when it was, Star Trek themed was really neat. So I love the fact that we were able to work that out. I love that Lasso introduced me to Comic Fu. So I was able to actually have a comic book themed episode, because that is the one portion of Star Trek that I know very little about, is the history of the comics with Trek. So I chatted up my now husband on ATM or back America Online Messenger. How's that? Yes, and Fu is a fairy, and you can carbon date my sister's relationship that way. She met her husband on America Online as well. I don't know if it must have been Messenger, because I think that was the only way for people to interact back then. I have them all. I mean, there used to be trillion, which is just a cool name for an app. There was this Trillian app that if you had accounts on ICQ, Yahoo, MSN, all of them, you could use this one app and sign into all of them instead of having to have different chat applications open. So I had a Trillian because I had all of them. I had MSN, Yahoo, ICQ, and AOL. I was everywhere. So yeah, but no, you're not alone. That's how my sister met her husband. So those were some of my favorite episodes. Were the ones with the guests. I absolutely loved having guests on. I mean, I love talking at you guys, and I love this chat thing where we could just chit chat about whatever the theme is. There was so much new Trek. I mean, seriously, if you go through that list, it's Picard and Strange New Worlds and Discovery. A lot of the shows this year were all about like the new country roots. Johnny Cash has been everywhere, man. But yeah, most of the shows this year were just so much. There was so much new Trek to talk about. There was just so much new Trek that was, you know, I loved doing that Connor Trinneer profile. Like I said, I was going to try and make that more regular. So that's kind of going to be a goal for the new season, is maybe figuring out the best ways to do profiles. Again, those are not going to be interview shows. It's just going to be me kind of doing deep dives into individual actors that speak to me personally. So basically like the really cool people that I know, because that way I can kind of interweave like personal stories. So, and maybe after Star Trek Las Vegas, there'll be more of that to tell. Secret AIM account. Oh my gosh. I just love this story. Secret AIM used my friend's house until college. I hung out in the EFC.com chats a lot after the kids. I babysat up to bed. Yeah, you know what? My first online chats were at my friend's house before I had my own computer. So if we want to carbon date anything, I didn't even own a computer when I started doing chats. That's because this was before everybody owned a computer in their house. When I was in college and you had to go to computer labs and stuff, that was me. I had to go to a computer lab to use a computer, but if I wanted to do personal chatting, I had to go hang out with my friends. So I feel you, babe. But I have to say, and I think you all know this is coming, especially if you were there for this show, but I have to say probably the highlight of this year was when Connor popped in the chats, because I was reviewing the first Shuttlepod show where they did the table read of Shuttlepod 1. That has to have been the highlight, because that was completely wonderfully unexpected, and it was on Valentine's Day. So, all right, I got my first computer mid-20s, so you got me beat there, Jean. So definitely Connor, and hopefully, you know, like I said, when I'm in Vegas, I mean, they're going to be there. I don't know what kind of timing we're going to have for interviews. You know, I'm going to try. We'll see what happens. But again, they chopped a day off. It's only 4 days instead of 5. So again, with their time being short, they may not want to take a break for interviews, especially since, you know, that's what they do now. But we'll see. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they're just going to keep cranking them out. I know for me personally, I need a break because it's just little old me producing my little old show. So right now, it's looking like next week is going to be the last week. And I'm looking at, and I don't want to confirm or deny anything yet, but one of my favorite people may be coming back, not Enterprise related, but one of my favorite people may be joining me next week. She said she would, but that was yesterday, and we've got an entire week's worth. Another goal, obviously, there were a lot of people that I would have liked to have had on this year. It just didn't work out, so hopefully the timing will be better for next year. Hey, Linda, thank you so much for joining us. You are more than entitled to multitask. I do that all the time. So I totally get the whole multitasking thing. So I guess nobody has figured out what this shirt is, which is fair because it's not science fiction related either. But I will vamp for another minute or two because we have some new people here. But this shirt, which I kind of dug up when I was looking for something to wear, I'm like, oh, I'm going to wear this. And it has, you know me, because this is me figuring out all these ways to interweave Star Trek into anything else. So I don't even remember what my first computer was. I was just very excited. I just was very excited. So, all right, gonna go watch some hockey. Great show. Thank you, Jean. Thank you, as always, for joining us. Mario. No, it's not Mario. All right, John, right before you leave, since you guessed Malcolm Reed, which was a really good guess, this is actually from The Monkees. Anybody that has ever watched The Monkees, and I have watched every single episode, I own them all on DVD. The Monkees and Batman and Star Trek were my favorite shows when I was growing up. This is The Monkees. This is their shirt. And a couple of episodes, they were the dun-dun-dun Monkey Men. And I went and actually, thankfully, saw Mickey and Mike in concert back in October. And you know what? You could tell Mike wasn't doing well even then. And he died not that long after. So I'm really glad I went. And I agonized. I was in t-shirt line, and I agonized because usually I get the ones that have the dates down the back. But Monkey Men was just so wonderful and so unique, and Monkey Men were their little superhero alter egos, and they were so cute. If you watch the theme, you don't even have to go look up an episode. If you watch the theme, just the theme, there's a clip of them flying off of their balcony as the Monkey Men in little shorts and capes. It's adorable. So this was Monkey Men, and to remind you all of the connection, Arlene Martell, who was the original T'Pring in Amok Time, was also in my favorite episode of The Monkees. She was actually in 2 Monkees episodes. I did not realize that she was also in the 3rd season episode, which I just realized recently. But she was in my favorite episode called Card Carrying. No, wait. The Spy That Card Carrying Red Shoes was the other Russian one. My favorite Monkees episode is The Spy That Came In From the Cool. And she was in that. So she was also in, and then the guy that played San, the guy that she ended up with because, he was there and Spock was going to be off, a legend, and he was going to be off running around the galaxy. San was actually in an episode of Batman 66. He played a bank teller in a Joker episode. The Monkees were amazingly hilarious and fun, and by their 3rd album, they were also an incredible band. Headquarters was the first album that they did that they had complete musical control over, because they gave Don Kirshner the boot. More Monkees trivia. They were supposed to be the ones that recorded the song Sugar Sugar that ended up being the Archies' one and only hit. The Archies were not even a real band. They were created by Don Kirshner specifically to record that song. So look at me, all this trivia. I also hold on. My computer's Monkees love it when Anne Murray covers them. Magic Lasso, you are adorable. Magic Lasso knows. I absolutely. Anne Murray and if Anne Murray and Rod Stewart were picked to go to Mars whenever it is that we decide to shoot people up there, I would not be sorry to see either one of the two of them leave the planet. And Lasso knows that. I cannot stand the 1980 Anne Murray cover of Daydream Believer. It's god awful. I absolutely tore somebody a new one in a bar once because they said that Anne Murray did better than the Monkees. Somebody sang Daydream Believer, and the comment that this person made was Anne Murray did a better version than the Monkees did, and I laid into her, especially when she accused me of not knowing who Anne Murray was. That was the straw. Like, I'm sorry, but no. I think the other favorite thing, just in general, about doing this show is that tangents. I love going off on these wonderful tangents, and you guys just come along with me for the ride, Chat Pack 2.0, which I love. I love that you guys are there with me for this crazy ride that I do every week. Yeah, see, it was awful. It was awful. It was absolutely 100% awful. And Lasso knows that. He just said that to get under my skin. Lasso absolutely knows that. He knows how I feel about Anne Murray. If you want to see something really fun, there's a Family Guy episode where Stewie falls in love with Anne Murray, and he and Brian go on this trip to go find her. Because they want to know what the meaning of Snowbird is. And it's great. It's great. I don't want to spoil it for anybody if you haven't seen it, but I highly recommend it. To be honest, I always wanted to buy the Christopher Reeve and Mark Hamill and Loretta Swit were all on the same season of The Muppet Show, and I always wanted to buy those DVDs. But Anne Murray was also on that season, and I refused to buy the DVDs because I didn't want her in my house. I've sung Daydream Believer. I sung Daydream Believer in karaoke. I do a pretty good job. When the Monkees came to sightsee, let's see. My mom drove us up to Niagara Falls when the Monkees came to sightsee. Their limo passed right in front of us coming off the island. Oh, that's awesome. I've actually met Davy Jones a couple of times. I met Mickey Dolenz a couple years ago when he did a convention. He actually just did Chiller. I didn't get to see him. Some of my friends saw him, but he did Chiller the end of April. So Mickey actually does the convention circuit. Mike Nesmith, the only one that I've never actually met face to face was Peter. Met Davy twice. Met Mickey, met him once, but I got his autograph like at a state fair. He was just like running down the line. I don't really count that. And Michael Nesmith did a Chiller convention a few years back, and I didn't have the money for an autograph, but the guy who was working his line was really sweet. And he's like, oh, he went on a break. Just hang out. Just wait. Oh, there he is. And I went over to him before he stepped to his table where he'd be behind all the stanchions. And I got to say hi to him. He shook my hand too. He shook my hand. So that was, all right. Okay. So see, like I said, tangents. Because Lasso said this. So the first time I met Davy Jones was down in Atlantic City. He was doing this 60s. He was the headliner of like this 50s and 60s musical review. So my mom got us tickets and we sat right down in front. And it was one of those stages that had like a little runway that came out in the middle. So I had to sit through, I love all that music, but I had to sit through a bunch of chorus people dancing around singing. And then at the end, Davy came out and he was the headliner. He came out and sang. He sang that song, which, by the way, for those of you that don't know, this is the song he sang to Marsha, or he sang in the Brady Bunch. He didn't sing it to Marsha. He sang it in the Brady Bunch. He sang it at me. He sang it to me. Because my mom got us really good seats and we were right by that runway and he was standing on the runway and he was like, girl, look what you do. That's one of the best moments of my life. And then my mom asked if we could go backstage and the woman was, yeah, Davy loves meeting his fans. So I got an autograph. Everything. Davy was such a sweetheart. Absolute sweetheart. I saw them in 1986 for their 20th anniversary tour. I saw them at Veterans Stadium in Philly after a Texas A&M game. And this is what's terrible. It must have been Temple. I think it was Temple and Texas A&M because Temple was the home team. Temple University and Texas A&M. And then it was when they were doing the anniversary tour, it was the Grassroots, I think Peter Noon was there. It was Grassroots, Herman's Hermits, the Monkees, and Gary Puckett. I knew there was another one, Gary Puckett. And it was so much fun. Peter was sweet. I liked them all. Davy was always my favorite. I've liked British guys since I was 5. Davy was always my favorite, and I loved horses. So the fact that Davy actually was a jockey or tried to be a jockey, he used to exercise racehorses when he lived in England. So another bit of trivia, which I can bring back to Star Trek. Here we go. Watch. This one's good. Davy Jones tried to be a jockey. He got too big to actually be a jockey. So he ended up in musical theater. He ended up being in the original Broadway cast of Oliver. He played the Artful Dodger. He was on the same Ed Sullivan show that the Beatles were on, their first show in February of '64. Davy was on there. They did, was it Consider Yourself? I think they did Consider Yourself. I actually have the DVD. I think they did Consider Yourself. So he was there. Davy Jones was there. The Beatles were there. Frank Gorshin was there doing his he was actually an impersonator. That was his big thing. He was an actor, but his claim to fame was he was an amazing amazing impersonator. So Frank Gorshin was there doing impersonations. Well, so Frank Gorshin not only ties in, so I had the Beatles, the Monkees, Batman, because Frank Gorshin was the Riddler, but we also know Frank Gorshin was one of the aliens in Let This Be Our Last Battlefield. See, told you I could bring it all the way back around to Star Trek, because that's one of my favorite things to do on this show is figure out how to bring stuff back to Star Trek. Okay, guys. And we both like him better than John Aniston, who played him first. The first Riddler was not Frank Gorshin, but he was the best Riddler. Have to agree with that. Okay, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me on my very next to last show next May, barring anybody telling me that they're absolutely available and want to come do a show in June, which you never know, but this is the next to last show, guys. So join me and hopefully. Oh, wow. It was an absolute incredible episode. Oh, okay. Thank you for the correction. Gotcha. Yeah, I played him again because Frank was better. For some reason, I thought John was first. Thank you, Lasso. We're also Batman 66 fans together. Thanks, Robert. Everybody out there, have an amazing evening. Thank you, as always, for your support. We're going to do this for the year one more time. I will catch you all next week. And until then, make sure that you all live long and prosper.
Hey, this is Connor Turner. You've been listening to the NX7062 podcast with Stephanie. Enjoy your evening.